This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. In this week's Parsha, in the Torah portion of this week, it says that Yakov came Arza Seir, to the land of Seir, stay Edom, the field of Edom. The Mefarshim tell us a fascinating thing, that he called his land Seir, the hairy land, and he called his field Edom, the red field, because he wanted to remember, he wanted to keep in his mind that he should never forget what Yakov did to him. That he wore Gedoya Yizim, he wore from the goat skin that his hand should be hairy to trick his father, and he gave him the red lentil soup in order to wheedle out of him the firstborn rights. He didn't want it to be that over time, maybe he might forget. It might diminish what Yakov did. You know, over time, that's what forgetfulness is there. Forget, things, you forget things. He didn't want to forget. Right? So therefore, that's why he called his land Seir and his field Edom. Now, that's an Esav. You should know that we have selective memories. The rabbi gives a clap, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, on Shmini Atzeres, on the last day of Yom Tov, Yizkor. When I give a clap Yizkor in my shul, every year I make an announcement. Those people that go out should go out for many years. That's what I give them a bracha. They should have their parents and their loved ones for many years. They shouldn't have to be saying Yizkor. But then I say something else. When we give a klap Yizkor, that means this is worth remembering. There's a lot of things that aren't worth remembering. Parents, loved ones, that's worth remembering. Feuds, what people did to you, that's not worth remembering. We have a Torah law, loisikaim v'loisitar. Loisitar means not to take revenge. Loisitar means not to bear a grudge. Now, not bearing a grudge means that I don't remember. Oh, you know what he did to me? I've seen that people carry grudges for generations. It's a generation thing. And that's what Esav did. He called his field Seir. He called his field Edom. He called his land Seir. He wanted to remember that trick with the hair. He wanted to remember how Yakov hoodwinked him with the red lentil soup to sell his firstborn rights. We don't do that. But we do use names the opposite way. We use names to remember good things. Now, I'm going to start this off with a personal story. To me, it's an amazing thing. Every time I say it, I get such emotion. It's now 26 years ago, more than a quarter of a century ago. We were at a hotel, and our daughter ate a piece of tainted chop meat, our oldest daughter, Chani, and it had E. coli. And she got an E. coli infection, which turned her blood sandy and shut down her kidneys. And she developed, I could tell you she's married with children, it's not going to hurt her, should it? But she developed what's called hemolytic uremic syndrome, HUS, hemolytic uremic syndrome. And And she was in Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, and she was on dialysis. She was getting blood transfusions, and we didn't know if she would get better. Some people, their kidneys don't restart, and this is a 6-year-old girl. So we had at that time 4 other babies, and we left them all with other people. No, 3 other babies. We left them all with other people. And my wife and I lived in Columbia Presbyterian Babies Hospital, mamish around the clock for 5.5 weeks. At that time, I had a daf yomi in Borough Park with 250 people. And that's the only time I left the hospital. Only time I left the hospital is a car came to Washington Heights at 10:15. You need something? A car came at Washington Heights at 10:15 and picked me up, and then took me home afterwards. Took me back to the hospital afterwards, and it was a huge sacrifice because I was wiped out the whole day. She was having medical tests, and I used to sit in the hospital and prepare to share, and then I would get in the car, go to Brooklyn, to Borough Park, and then they would bring me right back. And I said to my wife that you'll see in the schus of Daf Yomi, Chani is going to get better. Baruch Hashem, 5.5 weeks later, she got better. It stopped. We got home in time, I remember, for Shavuos. And this happened right after Pesach. And we got home for Shavuos. And a year later, we made a big Suda Seidah. And I told my wife when I prepared my speech for the Suda Seidah, it's a quarter of a century ago, I said, everybody likes a gematria. What's the gematria of Chana Weiss? So we spell Weiss, Vav, Vav, Yud, Yud, Samach. So let's figure it out. Chana, Ches is 8, Nun is 50, that's 58, Hey is 5, that's 63. Okay? Vav, Vav, Yud, Yud, Samach. So Vav, Vav is 12. Yud Yud is 20, so that's 32. And Samach is 60, is 92. So 92 plus 68 is, no, that's wrong. Let's go with that again. Chana. Ches is 8, Nun is 50, it's 58. Hey is 5, is 63. Weiss, Vav Vav is 12. Yud Yud is 20, that's 32. Samach is, one second, Vav Vav is 12. Yud Yud is 20, it's 32. And Samach is 60, that's 92. So 92 plus 63 is how much? 155. So 155. I recognize that number. Daf Hayomi is exactly 155. Dalet is 4, Pei is 80, that's 84. Hayomi, Hey is 5, Yud is 10, that's 15. Vav is 6, that's 21. Mem is 40, that's 61. And Yud is 71. 71 plus 84 is 155. It's all in the name. The Chazal tell us, Shema Gorim. A name foretells a person's destiny. There's a Gemara that says, L'chu chazu mifalos Hashem. Go and see the works of Hashem, asher som shamos ba'aretz, who wrought desolation in the land. That's a strange pasuk. It's like I would tell you, you've never been in New York? Come, let me show you the wonders of New York. I'm going to take you to ground zero. Ground zero? That's the wonders of New York. Destruction. I mean, L'chu chazu mifalos Hashem, you want to see the works of Hashem? Look at the sun. From over 90 million miles away, it does its job perfectly. We're not squinting. We're not barbecued. We're not freezing. You want to see the works of Hashem? Look at the water cycle. You want to see the works of Hashem? Look at a baby. Some shammai suppose you want to see the works of Hashem? Look at desolation. Look at destruction. So the Gemara says, Al tikrei shammais. Don't read it shammais. Ela shemais. Look at names. L'chu chazum ifalois Hashem. You want to see the works of Hashem? Asher some shemois parts. Look at names. Names have secrets. So you'll say, how do I see the wonders of Hashem? Because, somebody says, that was just a natural happening. But when we look at a name, and a name was given before, it precludes the element of chance. You see in the name the future. In Chanavais was Dafayomi. It was in the name. And if you look in the Torah, it's all over the Torah. Here's this boy born. His name is Moshe. Given by an Egyptian princess. He had 10 names. Yekusiel, Tovya. He had many names, Moshe. But the one that was kept was the one that raised him. Basia raised him. The name Moshe is the same letters as Hashem. Moshe is the same letters as Hashem because Loiro panim el panim k'Moshe. Nobody saw Hashem like Moshe. How was Moshe chosen? Moshe was chosen because Hashem saw he was a shepherd, and one day one of his sheep got sick. So, he was out in the wilderness, nobody saw it, but Moshe Rabbeinu felt bad for the sheep. He didn't give him a kick and say, "You lazy, good for nothing, let's go, it's a sheep." He took the sheep, put it on his shoulder, and carried him back. And Hashem said, "That's the way you take care of your flock. I want you to take care of my flock." That's why Moshe is Mse, from a sheep. It's right there in the name. But that name was given before. Now I'll show you something else. His wife, which he got in incredible ways. I mean, if you think about it, what are the chances that Moshe Rabbeinu, raised in the Egyptian palace, would marry a Midianite girl? Moshe was never in Midian in his life. He didn't speak the Midianite language. How could it possibly be that Moshe Rabbeinu would end up with a Midianite girl? Well, it took a couple of little, shidduchim are not so simple. It took a little machinations. Moshe Rabbeinu had to kill the Mitzri, then he had to run for his life and take refuge in Midian, and then he had to pull the staff out of the rock, the famous fable of the sword and the stone. That comes from the Medrash, that Yisro had the famous matzah that had on it, that was created at twilight in creation, and it had on it the Tzach Hadash Ba'achav, and he stuck it in a rock, and he said to the one who could take it out. And Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that pulled it out. So it's not easy to get the girl. But let's look at the gematria of Tzipora. Tzadik is 90. Pei is 80. That's 170. Reish is 200. That's 370. And Hey is 5. That's 375. Rabbeinu Ephraim says that's the same gematria as Li Moshe. To Moshe. Moshe is 345, so Li Moshe is 375. It's in the name. It's all in the name. I'll tell you something remarkable. All my life I've been fascinated by names. I just have a fascination. Moshe Meir, it's my name, is B'gematria Shma Gorim with the Koil. A name foretells a destiny. It's in the name. In the name. So, Bisya, Basya, I say Bisya because in Divrei Hayamim it's pronounced Bisya. Everybody knows her as Basya. Right? Basya, everybody says, Hashem said, you called Moshe your son even though he wasn't your son. So I'll call you my daughter even though you weren't my daughter. You weren't a Jewess, but I'll call you my daughter. That's why Basya is Baska, the daughter of God. But get a load of this. What did Bisya do? What was her claim to fame? she took the teva out of the water. Basya is the same letters as teva. Esav Yud Hey is the same letters as teva. It's right there in the name. It's amazing. It's just amazing what you see in a name, how Shema Garim, how a name foretells a person's destiny. I'll give you another example. There was an Egyptian princess that gave up everything to join Avram Avinu's home. As a matter of fact, according to many, the famine that struck the world to derail Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was going on his mission, Lech lecha mi'atzcha me'latcha me'beis avicha la'aretz asher areka. He was going to Eretz Yisrael. That was his mission. Then Hashem sent a famine. Some say that this was a big test to Avram. Hashem said, here you're not going to have good. Go on my mission and everything is going to be good. I mean, you're going to have fame. Everything is going to be good. And then he sent a devastating famine. Avram Avinu didn't complain. Some say the reason for the famine is that he should go down to Mitzrayim and unearth a pearl. And that pearl was Hagar, who later would be called Keturah. But isn't it interesting? Hagar, she gave up everything. She was a princess. And she gave up everything to become Sari Menu's cleaning lady. To join Klal Yisrael. That's why Hagar is Hagar. The ultimate ger. She was the ultimate ger. Now, but of course, that's not it. That's not all. No. Sari Menu said to Avram, I'm not having a child. Maybe in the merit, if I take in a rival, and Hashem sees that I go against my nature, and I take in a rival, Ulai yiboneh mimena. Maybe Hagar will cause that I'll have a child. Now let's look at the gematria of Hagar. Hey is 5, Gimel is 3, Resh is 200. It's 238, right? Hey is 5, 208. I'm so tired. Hey is 5, Gimel is 3, Resh is 200. That's 208. Yitzchak is 208. Yud is 10, Tzadik is 90, so that's 100. Ches is 8, and Kuf is 100, that's 208. Because in the schus of Hagar, Yitzchak was born. It's 208, 208. It's all there. One of the more remarkable names is the name Yitzchak. That's one of the more remarkable names. I'm going to tell you something that I heard from Rav Moshe Scherer at a keynote session. Rav Moshe Scherer, Olav Hashem, he's already gone 15 years. It's hard to believe. For 50 years, he was at the helm of the National Agudas Yisrael. He created a movement that became so powerful that it was the stage that allowed for Shabbos discrimination to end in this country. It was the setting from which people like Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rav Yakov Kamenetsky shone. I remember that Times magazine had a cover, Man of the Century. And they caused a big uproar because they were considering to give Man of the Century to Hitler. Not because of what he did, but they claimed that Man of the Century is the person that had the biggest impact in the century, whether for good or for bad. But they were convinced not to do it, that it wouldn't be a good idea. So they gave Man of the Century. You know who they gave? Does anybody know? No, nobody knows. The Man of the Century was Albert Einstein. So at the time, I wrote an article. You remember the article, Stephen? I wrote an article, who would be our Man of the Century? So it was a very interesting article. I said that not that I have the credentials to say something, categorically, but I said a very good guess for the man of the century would be the Chofetz Chaim. As I said, the very good guess for our man of the century. And then I went out on a limb and I said, and who would be our man of the millennium? Now that's really a tall order. And I said that if I would be asked who would be our man of the millennia, I would say it was Rashi. And then, of course, I made it interesting. I had runner-ups, and but when I wrote the lay leader of the century, my lay leader of the century was Rav Moshe Sher. So I remember that this was a good convention in the Right Town Hilton. And it was a huge Motzi Shabbos crowd, much huger than it is now, because Rav Moshe was there, and the Bluzhev Rebbe was there, and Friedrich Bluzhev Rebbe. It was a huge crowd. Remember, there were screens in the hallways because people couldn't fit in the huge ballroom of the Right Town Hilton. And I remember him saying at that convention, he said, "What do you think is the foulest word in the Torah?" Interesting question. What do you think is the foulest word in the Torah? So he proposed that the foulest word in the Torah is mitzachek. Sarah saw Yishmael mitzachek. And Rashi says that it's avodah zarah, gilui araya, shvichas dam. Idolatry, murder, and immorality, all wrapped up in one word. So he said that's hands down the foulest word in the Torah. Okay, so then he said, and what would you say if I tell you that Avram and Sarah had 100 years to choose what their son's name would be, and they called him Yitzchak? I mean, if that's the foulest word, you couldn't come up with a better name. Mitzachik is avodah zarah, gilui arayos, and shvichas dam, and they named their child Yitzchak. He said that the difference is in the tenses. An Arab, a Yishmael, lives to be mitzachik, to laugh now. A Jew is Yitzchak. He thinks about laughing in the future. She thinks about the future. That's a big difference. We have our eyes to the future. A successful person, Ezel Chacham, who is wise, a roes hanoled. He has foresight. She looks forward to the future. Olam hazeh domeh leprosdor. This world is like a hallway. Don't spend your time in the hallway. Right? So that's a Yitzchak. Now, how fascinating this name is. You know, there's a Yalkut Shimoni. Yalkut Shimoni says that Bikish Yakov liglois es haketz. Yakov wanted to reveal the secret time. Why? Because he looked at all of the names of the Shvatim. Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. There was no Ches and there's no Tes. In all the names. Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. No Ches and no Tes. Naphtali, Yisachar, Don, God. No Ches and no Tes. So he says there's no Chet. I could tell him the end of time. Then he looked again, and he said, oh, there's no Kuf and there's no Tzaddik. In all of the names, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Asher, Binyamin, Yosef, there's no Kuf and no Tzaddik. There's no Kates. I can't tell it to them. Now that's all the more amazing because 3 of these 4 letters is in the name Yitzchak. Isn't that amazing? 3 of those 4 letters is in the name Yitzchak. The Tzadi, the Ches, and the Kuf. But in none of the Shvatim, the only Shevet, everything in names, everything has a purpose. The only Shevet that has an ayin is Shimon. There's no Shevet that has an ayin. Ayin stands for Aveira, of immorality. And because of what Zimri, the Nasi of Shevet Shimon, did, that's why there's an ayin in Shimon's name. There's no other Shevet that has an ayin. It was the terrible sin of immorality. That's why there's a medrash that says there was never a king nor a major Navi from Shimon. Because of that sin of immorality. Actually, Shimon is Sham Avon. There is sin. No matter where you look, you will find Chachma in Jewish names. You take the name Noach. Noach is the same letters as Chaim. Because Noach will be Matzah Chaim B'einei Hashem. Take the first man, Adam. There's a great gematria, Adam. Aleph is 1, Dalet is 4, and Mem is 40. So that's 45. 45 because Adam is made up of Av and Aim. Av is 3, and Aim is 41. 1 second. Av is 3, and Aim is 41. That's 44. And one second, I'm doing something wrong over here. Oh, right. Av is 3, Aim is 41, that's 44, and Hashem, that's 45. Right? There's 3 partners in man. And that's Adam. Adam is gematria 45. Now, everybody asks, the Gemara tells us, Klal Yisrael kruyin Adam, ve'ein akim kruyin Adam. Klal Yisrael is called Adam, Goyim are not called Adam. There's 4 terms for people. Adam, Ish, Gever, and Enosh. All the other names are used on Goyim also, but not Adam. Adam is only for a Jew. Now, if you would ask me, I would say, Adam is the lowest name. Kimin ha'adama, a clod of earth, a block of clay. That's good for a guy that spends his night in the bar. It's a gailam. We're an ish, we're a mensch. No. Because the Netziv says Adam means something totally different. Adam means Adam ele Elyain. I could be the likeness of Hashem. I emulate Hashem. That's a Yid. A Yid tries to emulate Hashem. Mahu racham, afata racham. Mahu chanu, afata chanu. That's a Yid. That's an Adam. That's a man. Now let me ask you something. Let's say you have a grandchild or a child. Mazel tov, mazel tov. It's a bris. So what's he naming the baby? You're not going to believe it. V'karei shmoi b'Yisrael, nothing. Did I hear right? Did they call him nothing? Yeah, come here, you cute little nothing. Nothing. Look at my nothing. What a shame of nothing. You're nuts. The first child, one of the first children in the history of mankind, was called Hevel. Nothing. My cute little vanity. That's my vanity. Poop, poop, poop. What a shame of nothing. Who would name their child Hevel? But he died in vain. Killed cold-bloodedly by his brother. Shmogarim. You want to know of a name that would make people scratch their heads in wonder and say, what's going on over here? Make people, just watch the camera, please. Make people wonder, what's going on over here? The name Yakov. Whoa, what a strange name. Could you imagine? It's at the bris, and people go, shh, Yitzchak is talking. So he says, my oldest son, it was very interesting. My oldest son came out, and he had a beard, full head of hair, front teeth. He has his wisdom teeth already. Hashem made him complete. So we're going to call him Esav. Asu, he's complete. He's made. He's made. Then he says, and after him came out his brother, Azisa Yingela. And it was so cute. In the delivery room, his hand was holding the heel of Esav. It was a Kodak moment. You remember Kodak? Who would believe that there would become a time that people would not know what Kodak is? Who would believe? Who would believe there would come a time that people won't know what a payphone is? Who would believe it? Soon nobody will know what an ice tray is anymore, because we all have ice makers. Kodak was a Fortune 500 company. Now, Kodak is a museum piece. Nobody has film anymore. But it was a Kodak moment. Years ago, it was a Kodak moment. So cute. He was holding his brother's heel. That's very shame. And people are saying, what's he talking about? He's naming his name because he was holding the heel? People want to call him a heel? What's that all about? It's like a big kasha. Yakov, Yodo Yochezes Ba'kev Esav. What's that all about? So the Torah on Chumash says that Yakov already was an ish chesed. And he knew that if he wouldn't come out, his mother would have to go through again the pain of labor and delivery. Another 10 centimeters. So he grabbed the hold of his brother that they should come out as one to save his mother pain. And when we say Beis Yaakov girls, we have that in mind. That they should be chock full of chesed like Yakov. That's, because if you think about it, we should call them Beis Sarah girls. Why Beis Yaakov? Yaakov is Torah. That's for the men. But that's the chesed of Yakov. That's Beis Yaakov. So you'll say, okay, now I know. That's enough. Enough. You're not even starting. It's a very important thing to know that the Torah is nidreshes b'shivim ponim. The Torah is expounded in 70 ways. By the way, in case you should know, that nobody should wonder, we're going to go till 5:45, and then we're going to daven Mariv. Is that good with everybody? So 5:45 Mariv. It says that the Torah is nidreshes b'shivim ponim. The Torah is explained 70 ways. Now, it's Mariv at 5:45. Yeah. So you tell them, because they might be worried that we might be going on the whole night. Some people find this concept a little bit daunting. 70 different ways to understand something. Isn't that a little far-fetched? Of course, it's not just 70 ways. The Torah is learned pardes on 4 different levels: pshat, remez, soid, and drush. So it's 70 ways on 4 different levels. That's already 280 ways, and that's just the beginning. That's only for beginners. There's no end to the Torah's understanding. But people find it a little bit daunting. Yeah, you really think 70 different ways. So I always like to tell, I happen to stumble on this. The Chevrolet introduced a new car, and they called it the Beretta. Anybody ever had that car? The Beretta? Cute little car. They were promptly sued for millions of dollars by the gun company, because there's a famous gun, the Beretta. And they said, Hasog is Gevul. We have the right to kill people before you. So Chevy countered with a pamphlet, which I saw, 73 reasons why they called the car Beretta. Chevy had 73 reasons why they called the car Beretta. One of them, because at that time there was a famous dog in the movies, a dog, mind you, a famous dog called Burletta. And everybody had that name on their mind. So they had 73 reasons why they called it Beretta. If the Chevy think tank, which of course was not full with Flamet The Chevy think tank could have 73 reasons for calling a car Beretta, then the Torah could be Nidreshes B'Shivim Pana. So we just had one reason why he was called Yakov, because he grabbed hold of his brother's heel to come out in one time, so not to cause his mother another labor and delivery. Which, by the way, shows how opposite he was to Esav. Because why was Esav called Edom? Because when he came out, he said, no way I'm going to let my mother have any more children. This is out of the question. I'm going to share the Yerusha with other people. He took his heel, remember he's a grown man, he took his heel and he destroyed his mother's womb. That's why he came out with his mother's blood. That's why it was called Edom. And by the way, if you ever wondered what the name Rivka is, if you do a jumble of the name Rivka, it becomes Kirba inside of her. Because Rivka had the knowledge to see through Esav from what he did to her when he was born. And by the way, not only that, she also, remember, felt every time she was going to a church, he was running out. She knew it wasn't Yakov that was running out to the church. So what happened inside her gave her an insight into who Esav was. So I once heard from my dear friend Eli Teitelbaum, Olav Shalom. For those that don't know Eli Teitelbaum, all of the technology that we have today that teaches mass Torah, of course what we're filming now is an example of this, TorahAnytime.com. This share that I'm giving now will be watched by hundreds of people on their computer. Right, I'm going to put it as crystal ball of Jewish names, Tarrytown, New Jersey. It'll be watched all over. Kalaloshin. At this point, welcome. At this point, I have alone over 5,000 shiurim on Kalaloshin. By the way, if anybody is interested, you could write this number down. If anybody is interested, you can listen on your lunch break to 2 Mishnayos a day, in less than 10 minutes usually. I'm about to finish Shas. We're just finishing Mikvahs with the Mishnah Yomis, so we're going to finish Shas in April. It's archived from Brachas. So you could pick a Seder you want to learn. You want to learn Nezikin, you want to learn Nashim, you want to learn Mayid, you want to learn Zram. Soon we'll finish all of Taurus. Most of Taurus is finished. The number to call is 718. It's been such a successful program that we have our own number. You don't even have to go through the Kalaloshin switchboard. 718-906-6471. 718-906-6471. It's a free service. You can learn 2 Mishnayos a day. But all of this technology was started by one man, Eli Teitelbaum, Rabbi Eli Teitelbaum, who started Daladaf. Daladaf was that you called in and you could learn. First it was Daf Yomi, then it went to Mishnayos and Chumash and the Holocaust and Navi. And he really brought Torah all over the world with technology. And by the way, we know throughout the ages, there's always a perfect balance between the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, between Tumah and Kedusha. Never was Tumah as available as it is today. Never. It's never been as available. If 30 years ago, a boy wanted to see some dirty pictures, chas v'shalom, he had to go outside, go to a bad neighborhood, and sneak to a magazine place, and look 10 times that nobody is looking, and then, shamefully, he buys a dirty magazine. And then he has to hope that nobody sees it and nobody finds it. Today, you leave a boy in a locked room for 10 minutes with a computer. He's in Stein Vamayr. Stein Vamayr. Never has Tumah been as available as it is today. Now Hashem has to make a balance. That's why we have on Yom Kippur there were two seirim. They had to be twins. Shavin, Bekaima, Bemara, Bedomim, the two goats. One la Hashem, one whose blood was taken into the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies, and one la Azazel, that was cast off the cliff. Now you know what Azazel stands for? It's an acronym. Zel umas ze asa elikim. One opposite the other Hashem made. There's always a perfect balance. So since we're living in a world that is so much tumah, Hashem also had to make ready available so much kedusha. So Hashem gave us Art Scroll. Art Scroll opened up Shas, Chumash, Navi, Ramban to millions of people. You know, people don't realize what Art Scroll did. They don't realize that they sent 25,000 Art Scroll brachas, gemaras in Russian behind the Iron Curtain. You know what Art Scroll has done to advance Torah? It used to be that if you wanted to learn, it's actually a Gemara. The Gemara says, Elu Talmidei Chachamim shemikasasin ragleim lishmaya divrei Torah. Talmidei Chachamim that cut their feet to hear Torah. What does that mean? It used to be that if you wanted to learn Kachim, you traveled to Radin to hear Kachim, to go to Kaila Kachim in Radin. You wanted to know Lumdas, you traveled to Baranovich, to Rabbi Chanan Wasserman. You traveled to Rabbi Ber. You traveled to the Granat. People traveled. You wanted to learn Musar. You traveled to Navardik. So that's the way it was. That's the way it was. Today, you don't have to travel nowhere. You pick up the phone, you press 1, you get Chumash, you get past 2, you get Mishnah and Gemara. It's amazing. It's called Kol HaLashon because you can hear it in any language. So Eli Teitelbaum told me this pshat. He says, after Esav destroyed his mother's womb, he saw the fontanelle of Yakov, his little vulnerable head. And he said, now we're going to kill the competition. And he took his massive foot to smash it down on Yakov. What did Yakov do? He held up his puny little hands, and Hashem made a miracle. He was able to hold the heel and stave off being killed. We name after miracles. So that's why he named him Yakov, to remember that miracle. That's in the name. Same thing when Moshe Rabbeinu had a child, Eliezer. He called him Eliezer because Elikeya Avi Be'ezri Ve'atzileni Mecherev Paro. We give names to remember to give thanks. That's why there's a name. It's a question how to spell it. But there's a name, Ganesha. It's a Yiddish name like Spinza and Zlata. The name Ganesha, if spelled Gimel Nun Shin Hey, does those letters mean anything to you? It's the season. It's the letters of the dreidel. Gimel Nun Shin Hey, that's Ganesha. He was looking, where do I know those letters from? Ganesha, Gimel Nun Shin Hey. You know why? Because the cord was wrapped around the baby's neck. The mother had toxemia and almost died, and a miracle happened. So they gave the baby the name Ganesha to remember Neis Gadol Yasham. Here, Leah had her 4th child. After all, it's Thanksgiving. I have to tell you something about Thanksgiving. Jewish Thanksgiving. Jewish Thanksgiving is if we have something extra, then we must give thanks. Leah knew B'Nevuah there will be 12 Shvatim. She knew there were 4 wives. So that's 3 for each wife. When she had Yehuda, she got extra. She had a 4th child. That's extra. Ha'apam odes Hashem. I'm going to daven Ma'ariv now. How many people could come and relax in a DoubleTree hotel? Very expensive. They have busy schedules. They can't get away. I have to say, Moedim, I have extra. And not only that, I come here and I go to a shir. Whoa, I heard about names. Hapam odes Hashem. And give thanks to Hashem. Don't take things for granted. One more minute. Don't take things for granted. There's a saying by the Chovos Halvavos. Dvorim sheroitze lahasmid ba, things that you want to continue, al tiftach ba. Don't take them for granted. Don't take them for granted. Say thank you. Say Moedim. Baruch Hashem hativ shimcha ulecha noel haydais. There's an argument to say don't wash by supper. So much good food, don't fill yourself up. But there's a counter argument. While they might serve turkey, I don't know. But the thing to say thank you on, by washing you get a chance to bench. And you get a chance to thank Hashem with 3 brachas d'oraisa and 1 bracha d'rabbanan. And not only that, but in today's climate where we're worried about stabbings in Eretz Yisrael, to be able to say Rachem no Hashem Elokeinu al Yisrael Amecha and benching, that's a good thing to bench. I'm not sure I'll wash, but I think I will, for those of you.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.